Hey everyone, this is Patrick, and it is time once again to go over some latest metal releases. I got 4 death metal releases, 1 thrash metal release. Feels like a fun, strong week that we just came out of. I am talking about releases that came out on March 22nd, 2024. Okay, so first up is going to be an album that I didn't like very much. I'm talking about Hideous Divinity's Unextinct. Bands from Italy, 10 tracks, and 51 minutes of music. To be fair, I listened to it in my car. Sometimes albums, songs, tracks don't sound. That's not my preferred way of listening to new music, but I was going to work, back and forth, of course, and I wanted to hear this Hideous Divinity album. All I could hear was drums and vocals. I think the style that Hideous Divinity are going for here, they're listed as brutal death metal on Metal Archives. This sounds more like blackened death metal. They're going for that big sound like Sulfur Aeon, Behemoth. Yeah, it just didn't grab me very much. I'm going to give this a 6.9 out of 10. I can't really compare it to their earlier stuff. I don't remember listening to a lot of Hideous Divinity. It's just a band that I've never really given time to. I did listen to this, and yeah, out on Century Media, certainly they are a popular band. Certainly they have good musicianship, but the songs didn't stay with me, at least across my first listen. Okay, up next, the return of Brodequin. We're talking about Harbinger of Woe. This is their 4th LP, but their first in 20 years. This is a 3-piece brutal death metal band from Knoxville, Tennessee. 10 tracks, 32 minutes of music. This was put out on Season of Mist Underground Activist label. Yeah, this is probably the best Brodequin album that I've heard. I've listened to most of them. The production, the mixing this time around is better. You can hear everything going on. I think of bands like Mutilatred, and for some reason I also think of Obituary, but that's not going to make a lot of sense for people. But it's maybe just the overall sort of attack, the overall guitar tone, maybe even. But good, brutal death metal. Giving this about a 7.5, 7.5 out of 10. I like it. A bit more dynamic than their previous albums, but not dynamic enough really to rise to the level of a Mutilatred for me. I know that might be anathema for people because Brodequin were here for a long time. I will give this more listens. I like Brodequin, and when I'm in a brutal death metal mood, this definitely goes on that playlist, and yeah, I will listen to this album again. Alright, time for some really good stuff in my opinion. Critical Defiance, The Search Won't Fall. This is a thrash metal band from Chile. 11 tracks, 45 minutes. Immediately this calls to mind Morbid Vision's era Sepultura and everything. The vocals, the guitar attack, the songwriting. Other bands I think of, Suppression, which I think are also out of Chile, Sovereign, and maybe even Early Creator. This is a sweet spot for me for thrash. I don't love the vocals, but I don't love thrash vocals to begin with, but yeah, this just sounds like it could have came out in 1988, in my opinion, with better production, cool bass lines throughout that you can hear that are quite audible. Couple of instrumentals on the back end that are together that weren't unexpected. Pretty cool, sort of maybe that's called neoclassical, clean guitar style melodies on the instrumentals, and also I believe on the first track. Cool listen. I've only listened to it once, but I'm giving it an 8.1 out of 10. Okay, these next two are neck and neck for my favorite releases of the week. Let's start with Apparition's Disgraced Emanations from a Tranquil State. 6 tracks, 38 minutes of music. This band is from Los Angeles. They feature members from Dead Body. Taylor Young is on bass from Dead Body, and also Miles as well from Dead Body. Uh, Apparition, their first album, their debut album, Feel, is one of my favorite death metal albums of this decade so far. I remember learning about it from Decibel's top 40 albums of 2021, I believe. Yeah, just, it is more of a, I'm going to call it more of a dry, clinical production than this album. It's cleaner than this album, and it just has a massive sound. The rhythm section is what really stands out. Just perfectly written death metal songs. This album, they lean a bit more towards a fuzzier guitar tone. Kind of think of that Ultar guitar tone from their last two albums, from Ultar's last two albums from last year. So yeah, a bit fuzzier of a guitar tone, which I first didn't like because I just love how I think Apparition's Feel is basically a perfect album. And they also bring in a bit more jazz influence, a bit more progressive influence, and a bit more ambience, though ambience is already there in some of the sections, some of the turnovers, some of the transitions on Feel. Then you hear, on this album, you hear some leads and melodies that call to mind Chuck Schuldiner of Death. So yeah, Apparition here are going for a more progressive death metal sound. I just read their interview in the latest May edition of Decibel, and I really respect that. They have no boundaries for themselves. They want to just play what is fun to play. And yeah, my first impression on this album was an 8 out of 10. It has grown on me over the last few days. It definitely is rising and rising and rising every time I listen to it. But because I call this first impressions, I will stay with my 8 out of 10. But let me just say, it is definitely rising every listen. Up next, Civerous, their second album called Maze Envy, out on 20 buck spin. 7 tracks, 42 minutes and 10 seconds of music. This band is also from LA. It's a 5-piece. You have Juanjo Castellano on doing the beautiful cover art. Okay. Civerous' debut album, I really, really like. It is death doom. It has ambition. It has breakdowns. Heavy, suffocating, extremely clean sounding mix, production and mix. Death Doom, I would say, is their debut album. So Maze Envy continues along the journey that the band is taking us on. There's a instrumental intro to open up the album, then a long, I think 8-minute second track, first official song, and then another instrumental. So my first listen, I was a little bit, the track order didn't exactly flow in a way that I think this kind of style needs. But the more I listened, it all just started to come together for me. I love, this band knows when to attack really hard and in a fierce way. And they know when to open up, and they just sound like they are a well-oiled machine at this point. It's hard to think of exactly who they sound like. They bring in some ambient influence. I've heard them called post-blackened death doom. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I see that people are trying to understand what this band is bringing. They are bringing something different to the table. There's string sections, there's piano, which they were also on their first album. But yeah, a death doom band that is also not afraid to stretch and play around in different areas. And I like to see that from a fresh, new band. Civerous Maze Envy, I'm giving a 9 out of 10. My favorite release of this week. At this point, like I said, Apparition is growing on me every listen. But those two are awesome albums, and I thought they would be. Maze Envy is extremely good. Think of Zant Pontley. In fact, I believe the vocalist in Civerous is one of the new vocalists of Zant Pontley. But yeah, that style, that attack, death doom, they are students of the genre, you can tell. and are trying to do something special here. Those are my comments over about the 5 releases that I've gotten to this week so far. Tell me your favorites from the ones I listened to. Tell me some other new music that I should check out in the comment section. I appreciate all of the support and views and comments. I will see you all very soon, and remember to stay heavy.